The deafening crack of bone against rock echoed through the alien medical bay as Ian Cox plummeted from the maintenance scaffold. He landed with a sickening thud on the hard metallic floor, his left forearm bent at an impossible angle. The pain hit him immediately, white-hot and blinding, but instead of screaming, Ian gritted his teeth and let out only a controlled hiss of air. Zikara, the station's head medical officer, dropped the diagnostic tablet she was holding and rushed to his side, her 4 iridescent eyes widening in horror at the sight of the human's mangled limb. "Do not move." She shrieked, her voice hitting a frequency that made the medical instruments vibrate. Severe trauma, emergency protocol. Ian, despite the agony pulsing through his arm, managed to push himself into a sitting position with his good arm. "It's just a broken arm, Zikara." Nothing to his words were cut short when Zikara let out a wail that could only be described as primal. 2 of her 4 hands flew to her face, while the other pair began trembling uncontrollably. Ian watched in confusion as clear, viscous fluid began leaking from all 4 of her eyes, streaming down her pale blue skin. "Zikara, are you crying?" Ian asked, momentarily distracted from his own injury, the bone. She sobbed, pointing at the unnatural bulge where Ian's radius had snapped and was now pressing against his skin from the inside. It is. She couldn't finish the sentence and instead made a keening sound that activated the medical bay's alarm system. Ian looked down at his arm. The break was bad, but he'd seen worse during his 10 years as a deep space engineer. The bone hadn't punctured the skin, at least. It was a clean break, albeit a painful one. "Look, I know it looks bad, but do not speak. Conserve energy. Emergency medical team is coming." Zikara was now hyperventilating, her respiratory membranes fluttering rapidly on the sides of her elongated neck. Ian sighed. He knew the Garlaxian medical protocols would involve at least 3 days in a regeneration tank, followed by 2 weeks of restricted duty. He didn't have time for that. The station's atmospheric processors needed repairs now, or everyone, humans and aliens alike, would be breathing recycled air at 80% efficiency within 48 hours. With his good hand, Ian reached for his broken arm. "What are you doing?" Zikara gasped, her voice climbing even higher in panic. "Fixing it," Ian said simply. He took a deep breath, braced himself, and in one swift motion pulled and twisted his arm back into alignment with a nauseating crack. Zikara collapsed to the floor in a dead faint, all 4 limbs splayed out in different directions. The emergency medical team burst through the doors just in time to see Ian standing up, cradling his realigned but still broken arm against his chest, while their chief medical officer lay unconscious on the floor. "What happened to Dr. Zikara?" asked the lead medic, a Tralaxian named Vornik, whose skin shifted between shades of green with each breath. Ian shrugged with his good shoulder. "She didn't take it well when I reset my own bone." Vornik's 3 eyes blinked in rapid succession. "You reset your own bone without anesthesia?" "Yes. Now can someone wrap this up for me? I've got atmospheric processors to fix." The medical team stared at him in shocked silence before Vornik finally found his voice again. "Human, you will come with us to treatment immediately, and someone please revive Dr. Zikara." Ian reluctantly followed the medical team as 2 other aliens gently lifted Zikara from the floor, fanning her with specially designed air circulators to revive her. He knew arguing would only waste more time. But as they led him to the emergency treatment pod, he couldn't help but wonder why a simple broken bone had caused such extreme distress to an experienced alien physician. In the treatment room, Vornik activated the bioscanner that hummed quietly as it passed over Ian's arm. The screen displayed a 3-dimensional image of the break, which Ian noted with satisfaction was now properly aligned. The bone was reset correctly, Vornik admitted, a hint of surprise in his voice. But there is still significant damage that requires immediate attention. Zikara had regained consciousness and was now sitting on a medical stool, still visibly shaken. "Human Cox," she said, her voice quavering, "what you did was practical," Ian supplied. "Barbaric," Zikara countered, her voice cracking. "You must understand, in Garlaxian physiology, bone damage is catastrophic. Our skeletal structure is reinforced with neural pathways that make any fracture extraordinarily painful, often fatal, without immediate intervention. Ian's expression softened. I didn't know that. How could you endure such pain? Vornik asked, administering a localized pain blocker to Ian's arm as he spoke. Our understanding of human physiology indicates that bone fractures should cause debilitating pain. It hurt like hell, Ian admitted, but it's not my first broken bone. When you grow up on a mining colony on Mars, you learn to deal with injuries quickly. Sometimes there's no doctor around. Zikara's 4 eyes blinked asynchronously, a sign of deep emotional distress in her species. This is common for humans, not common exactly. But not unheard of, Ian said, watching as the medical team prepared a bone-knitting device. Look, I appreciate the concern, but I really need to get back to the atmospheric processors. Can we speed this up? Vornik exchanged a look with Zikara. The human life support systems are failing. They'll be at 80% efficiency in 2 days if I don't fix them. Not immediately life-threatening, but uncomfortable for everyone, especially the Mythosians with their higher oxygen requirements. Zikara straightened her posture, visibly trying to compose herself. We will expedite your treatment, Human Cox, but you must promise to return for follow-up care. Deal, Ian agreed. The bone knitting process took just under an hour, during which Ian explained the basics of human first aid to a fascinated but still disturbed Zikara. She took notes on her tablet, occasionally shuddering when Ian described setting his own broken leg during a solo expedition in the Martian outback. Your species evolved on a high-gravity planet with frequent environmental hazards, she observed. This has made you remarkably resilient. We're adaptable, Ian corrected. Not invincible, we just developed ways to keep going when injured. As the bone-knitting device completed its work, Vornik ran another scan. The fracture is stabilized, but full healing will take approximately 14 Earth days. You should not place stress on this limb during that time. Ian flexed his fingers experimentally. The pain was now a dull throb rather than the sharp agony from before. I'll be careful, but those processors won't fix themselves. Zikara stood up, her composure mostly restored. I will accompany you to ensure you do not further damage yourself. Ian raised an eyebrow. You know anything about atmospheric processors? No, she admitted, but I can hand you tools and monitor your medical condition. Ian couldn't help but smile. All right, Doc, let's go fix some machines. As they left the medical bay, Zikara's step faltered. Human Cox. Ian, she said, using his first name for the first time. I apologize for my reaction. It was unprofessional. No need to apologize, Ian replied. Different species, different pain thresholds, I get it. It was not merely the pain threshold that disturbed me, Zikara explained as they walked. It was the willingness to inflict such pain upon yourself. Among my people, such an act would be considered a form of self-harm worthy of psychological intervention. Ian considered this. I guess I never thought of it that way. For us, it's just practical medicine when better options aren't available. They reached the maintenance shaft that led to the atmospheric processing units. Ian secured his tool belt and checked the portable oxygen supply standard procedure when working in areas where life support might fluctuate. I will need to request permission to publish a paper on human pain response, Zikara said, more to herself than to Ian. This could significantly improve interspecies medical protocols. Ian laughed. Go for it. Just don't make us sound like some kind of pain-loving monsters, okay? Zikara's expression became serious. I would never. In fact, I believe there is much we could learn from human resilience. As they climbed into the maintenance shaft, Ian reflected on how strange it was that something as simple as setting a broken bone could create such a profound cultural misunderstanding. It wasn't the first time his human physiology had surprised his alien colleagues, but it was certainly the most dramatic reaction he'd witnessed. The atmospheric processors were housed in a massive chamber at the heart of the station. Zikara gasped when they entered. She had never been in this section before. Towering machines hummed and whirred, converting carbon dioxide back into breathable oxygen and filtering out impurities. It's amazing, she whispered. And broken, Ian added, pointing to a diagnostic panel that flashed red warning symbols. See that? The primary conversion unit is operating at 62% capacity and dropping. The secondary unit is compensating, but it's not designed for prolonged full operation. Zikara watched as Ian used his good arm to open an access panel, revealing a complex array of circuitry and mechanical components. "How can I assist?" she asked. "Hand me that spectrometer," Ian said, pointing to his tool belt. "I need to check the catalyst levels." As they worked together, Ian fixing the processors while Zikara handed him tools and monitored his vitals through a small medical scanner she'd brought along, they fell into a comfortable rhythm. Ian found that having an extra set of hands, 4 extra hands, actually made the work go much faster than he'd anticipated. "You're pretty good at this," he commented as Zikara anticipated his need for a calibration tool before he even asked for it. "I am observing and adapting," she replied. "Is that not what humans do best?" Ian smiled. "Touché." 4 hours later, the primary conversion unit was back online at 95% efficiency, not perfect, but more than adequate until replacement parts arrived on the next supply ship. Ian closed the access panel and wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve. "Mission accomplished," he said with satisfaction. Zikara scanned his arm with her medical device. "Your heart rate is elevated and I detect increased stress markers in your system. You require rest and nutrition." "I could use some food," Ian admitted. "Want to grab something at the station cantina?" Zikara hesitated only briefly before nodding. "I would like that." The station cantina was a marvel of interspecies cooperation. Different atmospheric conditions were maintained in separate sections, with specialized food preparation areas catering to the diverse dietary needs of the station's inhabitants. Ian and Zikara found a table in the common area, where the air composition was a compromise that most species found tolerable, if not ideal. Ian ordered a synthesized burger with fries, a luxury on a deep space station, while Zikara selected a nutrient solution that glowed faintly purple. "So," Ian said as they waited for their food, "does this mean you'll stop freaking out every time a human gets injured?" Zikara's skin flushed a deeper blue, her species equivalent of a blush. "I would not characterize my response as freaking out, but yes, I will endeavor to respond more appropriately in the future." Their food arrived, and Ian took a bite of his burger, savoring the almost authentic taste. "You know, I've been wondering how do Garlaxians handle injuries if bone damage is so catastrophic for you?" Zikara stirred her nutrient solution thoughtfully. "We avoid them," she said simply. "Our society developed around the prevention of physical harm. Our architecture, transportation, even our children's play activities all designed to minimize the risk of skeletal damage." "That explains a lot about the station design," Ian mused. "I always wondered why there were so many cushioned surfaces and rounded edges." Indeed. When the Interspecies Coalition was formed, Garlaxian safety protocols were adopted as the baseline for shared habitats, Zikara explained. Of course, adjustments were made to accommodate species with different requirements, such as the heat-resistant flooring in the Vulcanian quarters. Ian nodded. "I've worked on stations and ships all over the sector, and this is definitely the safest design I've encountered. Still didn't prevent my fall, though." "Which reminds me," Zikara said, her tone becoming more clinical. "How did you fall?" "The maintenance scaffolds have safety railings specifically designed to prevent such accidents." Ian looked slightly embarrassed. "I was reaching for a power coupling that was just out of range, thought I could stretch to get it without moving the whole scaffold. Turned out I was wrong." Zikara's eyes narrowed. "You deliberately bypassed safety protocols?" "I was trying to save time," Ian defended himself. "The processors needed fixing ASAP." "No repair is so urgent that it justifies risking your life," Zikara said firmly. "This is precisely the kind of human behavior that confounds other species. You are simultaneously incredibly resilient and frustratingly reckless." Ian couldn't argue with that assessment. "Fair point. I'll be more careful next time." "See that you are," Zikara said, but there was no real anger in her voice. "I would prefer not to witness any more bone resetting demonstrations." They finished their meal, discussing the differences in how their respective species approached risk and safety. Ian was fascinated to learn that Garlaxians had no concept of extreme sports or recreational risk-taking activities. The very idea of deliberately putting oneself in danger for entertainment was completely alien to them. "So no Garlaxian mountain climbers?" Ian asked with a grin. "Absolutely not," Zikara replied, "though we do have virtual simulations for those with scientific interest in such activities." "Virtual reality isn't the same," Ian said. "There's something about the real thing, the actual risk, the physical challenge that can't be replicated." Zikara studied him curiously. "This is a common human perspective?" "Pretty common, yeah. Not universal, but many of us enjoy pushing our limits." "Fascinating," Zikara murmured. "This may explain why humans have advanced so quickly in space exploration. You are naturally inclined to take risks that other species would avoid." As they left the cantina, Ian's station communicator buzzed. He checked the message and groaned. "What is it?" Zikara asked. "Station chief wants a full report on the atmospheric processor repair. And he's not happy about my unauthorized medical procedure, as he puts it." Zikara's membranes fluttered in amusement. "I may have included that detail in my medical report." "Thanks a lot," Ian said sarcastically. "Protocol requires complete documentation," she replied primly. "However, I also noted that your quick action prevented a potentially catastrophic life support failure." Ian gave her a grateful look. "I owe you one. You owe me nothing except adherence to proper safety protocols in the future," Zikara said. "And regular checkups for your arm until it is fully healed." "Yes, doctor," Ian said with a mock salute. Over the next 2 weeks, Ian found himself spending more time in the medical bay than he ever had before. Zikara insisted on daily scans of his healing bone, using the opportunity to gather data for her research on human injury response. What started as obligatory medical check-ups gradually evolved into friendly conversations that extended well beyond the necessary medical procedures. Ian learned about Zikara's homeworld, a planet with lower gravity than Earth and a protective atmosphere that filtered out most harmful radiation. The Garlaxians had evolved in an environment with few predators and stable weather patterns, which explained their more fragile physiology and risk-averse nature. In turn, Zikara became increasingly fascinated with human history, particularly how Earth's harsh conditions and numerous natural disasters had shaped human evolution and psychology. "Your species developed in an environment that regularly tried to kill you," she observed during one of their sessions. "No wonder you developed such high pain tolerance and crisis response capabilities. When you put it that way, it sounds like Earth is some kind of death trap," Ian laughed. "Compared to Garlax Prime, it is," Zikara said seriously. "The gravity alone would crush a Garlaxian's skeletal structure within hours without protective exosuits." Ian whistled. "I knew your planet had lower gravity, but I didn't realize it was that significant." 0.6 Earth standard, Zikara confirmed, "which is why I find it so remarkable that humans can function on worlds with even higher gravity than your own." "Adaptability is our superpower," Ian said with a grin. "Speaking of which, how's my arm looking today?" Zikara examined the latest scan. "Healing progresses at an impressive rate. The bone knitting treatment accelerated the process, but your natural healing abilities are still remarkable by non-human standards. So I can get back to full duty soon. I will clear you for regular duties in 3 days," Zikara said. "Though I would advise against any heavy lifting for another week after that." Ian was about to respond when the station's emergency alarm blared. A computerized voice announced, "Attention all personnel, micrometeoroid impact detected in Sector 7. Hull breach protocols initiated. All non-essential personnel evacuate to designated safe zones immediately." Ian and Zikara exchanged alarmed looks. Sector 7 housed the station's communications array critical infrastructure that allowed the station to maintain contact with Earth and other outposts. "I need to get down there," Ian said, already moving toward the door. "You are not cleared for emergency response duty," Zikara protested, following him. I'm the senior engineer on shift, Ian countered. And I know the communications array better than anyone else on board. Zikara hesitated only briefly before grabbing a medical kit. Then I am coming with you. Your arm is not fully healed, and hull breach situations often result in injuries. They raced through the station corridors, joining the emergency response team that was assembling outside Sector 7. The sector had already been sealed off, emergency bulkheads deployed to prevent atmospheric loss throughout the station. Station Security Chief Vex, a tall Garlaxian with mottled gray skin, was coordinating the response. Breach has been contained to subsection 7C. Atmosphere loss is minimal, but the communications array has sustained damage. What kind of damage? Ian asked. Unknown. Internal sensors are offline in that section, Vex replied. We need to send in a team to assess and repair. I'll go, Ian volunteered immediately. Vex's compound eyes focused on Ian's arm, still in a lightweight supportive brace. Are you medically cleared, Human Cox? Before Ian could respond, Zikara stepped forward. I will accompany him as medical support. The repair of the communications array is critical to station operations. Vex considered this for a moment before nodding. Very well. Suit up. You have 20 minutes of air in the emergency suits. That section is currently depressurized. Ian and Zikara quickly donned emergency pressure suits designed to work for multiple species. Ian's was a standard human model, while Zikara's had been modified to accommodate her 4 arms and different body structure. Are you sure about this? Ian asked as they checked each other's seals. I thought Garlaxians avoided dangerous situations. We do, Zikara confirmed. But I am also a doctor, and my patient is about to enter a hazardous environment. My duty is clear. Ian was touched by her determination. Thanks, I'll try not to need your medical skills in there. See that you don't, she replied, but he could see the concern in all 4 of her eyes. They entered the airlock leading to Sector 7, waiting as the atmosphere was equalized with the vacuum on the other side. When the indicator light turned green, they pushed through into the damaged section. The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. The micrometeoroid had punched through the outer hull, creating a hole approximately 30 centimeters in diameter. Emergency sealant foam had automatically deployed, preventing catastrophic decompression, but the damage to the internal systems was extensive. The main communications processor is still intact, Ian observed, examining the equipment. But the power distribution node is fried, and at least 3 of the subspace antenna relays are damaged. Can it be repaired? Zikara asked, staying close to Ian while scanning the area for any potential hazards. Yes, but it's going to be tricky, Ian said. I need to bypass the damaged power node and reconnect the functional relays directly to the emergency power supply. He began working quickly, his hands moving with practiced efficiency despite the bulky pressure suit gloves. Zikara assisted as best she could, holding tools and parts as Ian needed them. The suit's limited air supply created a constant time pressure that Ian tried to ignore as he focused on the repairs. How is your arm holding up? Zikara asked after Ian winced while reaching for a particularly awkward connection. It's fine, he said automatically. Your biometric readings suggest otherwise, she countered, indicating the medical scanner integrated into her suit. Your pain levels are elevated. Nothing I can't handle, Ian insisted. We've got less than 10 minutes of air left. I need to finish this. Zikara fell silent, but he could feel her concern radiating through her body language even in the bulky suit. With just under 4 minutes of air remaining, Ian made the final connection. The communications array hummed back to life, lights blinking as systems rebooted. Got it, he exclaimed. Let's test it. He activated his suit communicator. Cox to control, communications array is back online, performing diagnostics now. There was a moment of static before Vex's voice came through clearly. Confirmed, Human Cox, we are receiving your signal at 92% strength. Well done. Ian grinned at Zikara. Mission accomplished. Let's get out of here before our air runs out. They made their way back to the airlock, but as they approached, Ian noticed a structural weakness in the ceiling where the impact had stressed the station's internal framework. Wait, he said, putting out an arm to stop Zikara. That support beam is compromised. We need to before he could finish. There was a sharp crack as the beam gave way. Ian reacted instinctively, pushing Zikara toward the airlock while diving in the opposite direction. A section of ceiling crashed down where they had been standing moments before. When the dust settled, Ian found himself separated from Zikara by a pile of debris. His suit's air indicator now showed less than 2 minutes remaining. "Zikara, are you okay?" he called over the communicator. "I am unharmed," her voice came back, tight with stress. "But you are trapped on that side. Your air supply, I know," Ian interrupted. "Go through the airlock. I'll find another way around." "Negative," Zikara said firmly. "I will not leave you. We can move some of this debris." Ian assessed the situation quickly. The debris was too heavy to move in the time they had left. "There's an emergency airlock in subsection 7D, he said. "I can reach it from here. You go through this one." "Your suit indicates 142 of air remaining," Zikara pointed out. "Can you reach it in time?" "Only one way to find out," Ian said, already moving. "See you on the other side, Doc." He heard Zikara protesting as he made his way through the damaged section, navigating around fallen equipment and structural debris. His arm throbbed with each movement, but he pushed the pain aside and focused on reaching the emergency airlock. The route was longer than he remembered, complicated by the damage from the impact. His air supply indicator ticked down relentlessly. 1:15, 1 o'clock, 0:45. When he finally reached the emergency airlock, he had less than 30 seconds of air remaining. He punched the activation code with fingers that felt increasingly clumsy, relief washing over him as the door slid open. The airlock cycle seemed to take forever. As the pressure equalized, Ian's vision began to darken at the edges, his lungs burning with the effort of extracting the last molecules of oxygen from his suit's depleted supply. Just as the inner door began to open, his air ran out completely. Ian held his breath, pushing through into the pressurized corridor beyond before tearing off his helmet with desperate hands. He gulped down air, sweet and life-giving, as he collapsed against the wall. He was still sitting there, breathing heavily, when Zikara and a medical team rounded the corner at a run. "Ian," Zikara cried out, dropping all professional detachment as she rushed to his side. The medical scanner in her hands whirred as she passed it over him. "Oxygen saturation returning to normal levels. No signs of hypoxic damage. Told you, I'd make it," Ian managed between deep breaths. "Barely," Zikara said, her voice tight with emotion. "That was unnecessarily reckless, even for a human." Ian managed a weak smile. "I thought we established that recklessness is a human trait. One that will give me premature membrane deterioration," Zikara muttered, helping him to his feet. "Your arm needs immediate attention. The strain has compromised the healing process." Ian didn't argue as they led him back to the medical bay. The adrenaline was wearing off, and the pain in his arm was making itself known with increasing intensity. Back in the familiar surroundings of the medical bay, Zikara carefully removed the supportive brace and scanned his arm. Her expression grew serious as she studied the results. "The bone has shifted slightly out of alignment," she said. "We need to realign it and restart the bone knitting treatment." Ian nodded wearily. "Do what you need to do." Zikara prepared a pain blocker, but before she could administer it, Ian said, "Wait." She looked at him questioningly. "You don't need to use that," he said. "I can handle it." Zikara's 4 eyes blinked in synchronized disbelief. "You want to endure the realignment procedure without pain management. After everything you've just been through." "I'm not saying I want to," Ian clarified. "But you were so disturbed by me setting my own bone before. I thought maybe you'd like to see that humans aren't just reckless pain seekers. Sometimes we endure pain when necessary, but we're not immune to it." Zikara was silent for a long moment. "Is this some kind of human pride demonstration?" Ian shook his head. "No, it's about understanding each other better. You've been studying human pain response for your research. Here's your chance to observe it firsthand with proper medical supervision this time." Zikara considered this, then slowly put down the pain blocker. "Very well. But I will monitor your vital signs carefully, and if they reach dangerous levels, I will administer the blocker regardless of your wishes." "Fair enough," Ian agreed. As Zikara positioned his arm for realignment, Ian took deep, measured breaths, preparing himself for the pain to come. This time, he didn't try to hide his reaction when Zikara carefully but firmly moved the bone back into proper alignment. He gasped, his face contorting in pain, sweat beading on his forehead. Zikara worked quickly and efficiently, her 4 hands giving her an advantage in manipulating the injured limb. When the procedure was complete, she immediately activated the bone knitting device. "There," she said softly. "It is done." Ian exhaled slowly, his body gradually relaxing as the worst of the pain subsided. "Thanks. You deliberately experienced pain you could have avoided," Zikara observed, her voice a mix of confusion and something like respect. "Why?" "Because sometimes understanding comes through shared experience," Ian said. "You needed to see that humans feel pain just as intensely as anyone else. We just process it differently." "I am beginning to understand," Zikara said thoughtfully. "It is not that humans do not feel pain, but that you have developed psychological mechanisms to contextualize and endure it when necessary." "Exactly," Ian said. "Pain is information. Sometimes you need to listen to it, sometimes you need to push through it. Knowing the difference is what matters." As the bone knitting device hummed quietly, healing Ian's arm for the second time, Zikara made notes on her tablet. "This will significantly revise our interspecies medical protocols," she said. "The current guidelines treat human pain response as anomalous, almost as if you were defective in your pain perception." Ian laughed. "We're not defective, just different." "Indeed," Zikara agreed, "and those differences have clearly contributed to your species' remarkable adaptability." The station's communication system suddenly activated. "Attention all personnel, communications array is fully operational. All departments resume normal operations. Emergency response team report to debriefing in conference room Alpha." Ian started to sit up, but Zikara firmly pushed him back down. "You are exempt from debriefing until medical clearance is granted." "But no arguments," she said firmly. "I have already informed Chief Vex of your condition. The debriefing can proceed without you." Ian reluctantly settled back. "How long am I stuck here this time?" "The bone knitting process will take approximately 3 hours," Zikara said, "after which you will remain under observation for an additional hour. Then you may return to your quarters for rest." "And when can I get back to work?" Zikara's expression softened. "You humans, always eager to return to your duties even after injury and near asphyxiation." She consulted her tablet. "Light duties tomorrow, full duties in 3 days, assuming the healing progresses as expected." "I can work with that," Ian said, settling more comfortably on the medical bed. "So, about that research paper you're writing, it has evolved into a comprehensive study of human pain response and crisis adaptation," Zikara said, suddenly animated. "Your experiences have provided invaluable data points. I am particularly interested in the psychological aspects of your ability to compartmentalize pain during emergency situations." As Zikara enthusiastically outlined her research, Ian found himself smiling. What had begun as a shocking cultural misunderstanding had transformed into a genuine scientific and personal exchange, a perfect example of why the Interspecies Coalition had been formed in the first place. 3 weeks later, Ian stood in the station's observation deck, gazing out at the stars. His arm was fully healed, with only a slight tenderness remaining when he lifted particularly heavy objects. The communications array was functioning at optimal capacity, and the station had returned to its normal routine. He heard the door slide open behind him and turned to see Zikara entering, a tablet clutched in one of her 4 hands. "I thought I might find you here," she said, joining him at the viewport. "You humans seem drawn to stars." "They remind us of home," Ian said. "No matter how far we travel, we can always look out and see the same kinds of stars that shine on Earth." Zikara nodded, understanding. "I have completed my research paper," she said, holding up the tablet. "I wanted you to be the first to read it." Ian took the tablet, scanning the title. "Adaptive Pain Response in Humans, Implications for Interspecies Medical Protocols." "Catchy title," he said with a smile. "Read the acknowledgements," Zikara urged. Ian scrolled down to find his name prominently featured. Special thanks to engineer Ian Cox, whose remarkable demonstration of human pain management and crisis adaptation provided key insights that fundamentally reshaped our understanding of interspecies physiological differences. "You've made me famous," Ian joked, handing the tablet back. "The paper has already been accepted for publication in the Interspecies Medical Journal," Zikara said proudly. "And the Coalition Medical Board has requested that I develop new training protocols for non-human medical personnel treating human patients." "That's great," Ian said sincerely. "It might prevent another doctor from fainting when a human resets their own bone." Zikara's skin flushed deep blue. "I maintain that my reaction was perfectly reasonable given my physiological background," she said primly. Ian laughed. "I'm just teasing you, Doc." They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching as a supply ship departed from the station, its engines glowing blue against the blackness of space. "I have been offered a position at the Coalition Medical Research Center on Earth," Zikara said suddenly. "They wish me to continue my research on interspecies medical protocols in a more comprehensive facility." "That's a huge opportunity," Ian said. "Congratulations." "Thank you," Zikara said, "but I am concerned about Earth's gravity." Even with an exosuit, extended periods in Earth gravity can be taxing for Garlaxians. Ian considered this. "You know, they're always looking for experienced engineers at the lunar colony. It's only 1/6 Earth gravity might be more comfortable for you. And it's just a short shuttle ride from the Medical Research Center." Zikara's 4 eyes widened. "Are you suggesting that I might apply for a transfer?" Ian finished. "I've been thinking about it. Deep space is amazing, but I miss having solid ground under my feet, even if it's not Earth ground." "This is most unexpected," Zikara said, but he could hear the pleased note in her voice. "Consider it a continuation of our cultural exchange," Ian suggested. "You can study humans in their natural habitat, and I can make sure you don't faint every time someone gets a paper cut." Zikara made an indignant sound. "I do not faint at minor injuries. Just major bone trauma, got it," Ian said, dodging as she swatted at him with one of her 4 hands. As they laughed together, Ian reflected on how far they'd come from that first shocking encounter in the medical bay. What had begun as a cultural misunderstanding had blossomed into a friendship and professional collaboration that might now continue on a new world. Sometimes, he thought, it took a broken bone to forge the strongest connections. "I will submit my application to the Medical Research Center tomorrow," Zikara decided. "And you, I'll put in for the lunar colony transfer," Ian agreed. "Who knows? Maybe in a few years, we'll co-author the definitive guide to interspecies emergency medicine." "I would like that," Zikara said softly. Outside the viewport, the stars continued their eternal dance, silent witnesses to the ongoing story of different species learning to understand each other, one broken bone at a time.